Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching Remote Edition. I am not in the normal situation here, Justin. So if you all have any drops, issues, blame it on me. This is going to be a fun one, Justin. We had a little some fun in the green room here, but not as much fun on the pitch. I was boots in the ground for San Diego. We're going to talk about San Diego today. We're going to talk about some more city news, some injury updates, and we'll get to the preview as well for Seattle coming to town. But Justin, how you doing? Middle of the week, a little check-in. How we feeling? I mean, gut check time. Week 1, week 2, very different.
Very different. Feeling a lot less optimistic after this first one, or after the first one. However, I think there were some parts in the game that that highlighted where we could go as a team. And obviously, when you don't see Hartel in the starting lineup, it's already like, all right, this is going to be rough. We knew it was going to be rough going into San Diego as well. But Jake, know what I was going to laugh at? Is like we probably should have recorded us in the green room where you were literally like, all right, talk when you hear me. And I'm like, well, do I talk now? Like it's I think people would have chuckled at that. But no, let's get into it because we have a lot to get through. Jake, do you want to start with a retweet or delete, or do you just want to hop straight into everything else?
I do, yeah. I'll give it a quick one because I think this will lead us into the actual rest of the show here. But my retweet or delete, and I think it's going to be fairly common for a lot of you today, and especially as we reflect on this game, is that I do not think he is an MLS MVP, but if you're talking about a player that is the most valuable player to his team, his franchise in MLS, I don't think you can look any further than Marcel Hartel. Case in point, match day 2, the first game in his history here that he hasn't started, which we'll get to, right, Justin? But when he's not in the field, we are a totally different team. Might I say, even exposed to a certain extent. So if you're talking about a most valuable player, I think he has to have a hand in the mix, regardless of how the team is doing. He is so crucial to any form of success we've had. And we said it before, but I think it came to life on Sunday.
No, I would retweet that. The one thing I would caveat with is people are like, well, what about, and obviously Leuven has not been on the field for us. I think Leuven is more of a captain in the sense of what he embodies and how he leads these guys, even from like a leadership standpoint. But truly from a soccer sense, our entire game plan goes out the window without Marcel Hartel. We are running the offense through him. He's helping direct on defense as well. So nothing against like putting a Miggy in there, but like, you just can't replicate that from a guy from a Hartel perspective. So let's jump right into the starting 11. It was unchanged except for Miggy swapped for Hartel. So quick updates on what that was we have Berkey in the back, Polvara, Baumgartel, Orozco from left to right, then Santos, Durkin, Edelman, Vollum. Then you have Miggy and Songbin underneath of Betcher. Kind of a fun fact that I saw as well. Miggy's first start since July of 2023.
Yeah.
Now, remember, he was on loan in the USL side, Birmingham Legion. But there he only had 27 games played, with only starting 4 of those matches. So really only 7.5 full 90s in the past year or so. So going straight from that to the starting 11, it really shows the growth that you think that DeMay has seen out of him. But you already mentioned it, Jake, cat out of the bag. Hartel, this would have been his 50th straight start for us. He has not missed a game since being in St. Louis. Sometimes the best, I always get this wrong. Sometimes the best ability is availability.
Yeah. No, it is. And by the way, shout out to the Hartel fam. Congratulations on the newborn. Wishing them all the best. We obviously know how that can be, but also very, very excited to have him back this weekend because we need it. And I was also excited to see Miguel Perez get a start here. And it's not like he blew the whole loan away. Like, you want those loans to be very successful where they find themselves, they get a ton of minutes, a ton of starts, a ton of experience. And I don't think it was a bad experience, but it definitely wasn't one of those that you'd highlight saying, okay, he's ready to come back and make an impact. But DeMay believes in him. He said as much in the press conference, and said that they were really impressed with what they've seen in the growth. And this is just an opportunity for him. I think Justin, had Teuscher been fit and ready to go a distance in this match, probably would have been him in this position, but it was Miggy. And I wasn't like watching the game and even live saying, oh man, he just looks so out of depth. But comparing him to Hartel, I mean, it's apples and oranges, and there is no replacement on this team for a Marcel Hartel. So again, it kind of goes back to the MVP conversation of it all. So a tough spot for him, man, too, to come in and start away in San Diego against a buzzsaw of a team.
And it was a disheartening starting 11, but Jake, something that's not disheartening is Hoffman Brothers, our presenting sponsor. This is their starting 11, and they are giving a portion of their sales to Stray Rescue now through the end of March. So you have another, what is that, over 3.5 weeks to call Hoffman Brothers, go to hoffmanbros.com and get your services through them so that you can help locally with Stray Rescue this week and next, obviously, and the one after. This is really when you need to be focusing on your HVAC maintenance. Heating season is coming to an end, and you need to make sure that your furnace is, after working tough hours on these past couple months, is in good shape before you just leave it dormant for the next couple of months as well. So this is a perfect time to call Hoffman Bros or get them online at hoffmanbros.com.
Amen, Justin. Shout out to Hoffman Brothers for sponsoring the starting 11 segment here in the show. Let's get into the game. We talked just a little bit about it, just dipping our toe in those waters. But let's just dive head first here for San Diego. We don't need to linger too much in this game, Justin, because frankly, I think looking now retroactively back at it, which is always easier, right? Revisionist history. Set up wise, in terms of, us just starting this new identity, this new path forward, and missing key personnel on the back line in the midfield. And, you still argue up top as well, right? It just never was going to go incredibly, especially now also looking at how home form has been so important for all MLS teams this season, which we'll bring in a fun stat here later on. But it was early for San Diego getting on the board. The momentum was there for them. They just looked up for it on their home turf at Snapdragon. They struck early through their DP, Anders Dreyer, who, if a guy named Lionel Messi hadn't been around this past season in 2025, probably would have been your MVP. Converted on their first real attacking surge, immediately turning this game into a 1-0, an uphill battle for us away from home. And, it was before we even registered a shot, even really any sort of possession or kind of foothold in this game. And Justin, let's talk to the actual goal itself, because I was actually on the side where the goal happened. It even kind of looked potentially offsides to me. I know it was not, but it looked way too easy for San Diego, especially off the drop. You cannot concede within 3 minutes when you're away from home.
Right. So I'm going to start this one all the way back at 2 minutes and 17 seconds, which is like 30 or 40 seconds before the goal happens. And you see this back pass here by Edelman. I think that's fine. This is where I have the frustration. For everybody that can't see this visually, well, one, what are you doing? Get on our YouTube and see these goal breakdowns. But two, if you're listening from podcast sense, you have Baumgartel, who has the ball, and he's probably 15 yards from the closest attacker, almost 20 yards. And instead, Jacob, moving the ball, moving with it to keep momentum, he just puts his foot on top of it, leaves it, and he is stagnant, allowing the attacker to gain then another probably 8 or so yards to where he is now within 3 yards of him. And Baumgartel then has to make a pass with his off foot, his left foot, into an Edelman. Look at the amount of San Diego attackers that are around Edelman. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 without a single city attacker, a single city person for him to lay his ball off to. And that's exactly what San Diego is looking to do. Invite you to try to play through them. They're extremely compact. And I hated the way that Baumgartel was so lackadaisical 2 minutes into this. Could have played it over to Orozco. If he was quicker, he could have dribbled over towards Orozco, created a little bit of space. But just by putting your foot on top of it, you completely take the air out of it. And this is not the time to take the air out of the game, because then guess what? We have a turnover. And Jake, I'm going to pause it right here as well. Whenever we're trying to press, we need to figure this out with Edelman and Durkin, because as you see it right here, both of them are completely out of the play already. Now we're looking at a 5-on-4 where San Diego is attacking our defenders, and that's an absolute downfall, because now watch this. As this plays out, I want you to keep an eye on here at Polvara. This is a tricky situation for him. I know that Mike Chat City Tactics mentioned his positioning. I'm not that upset about his positioning, because he's not really that close to the ball. He's jogging back. He doesn't need to completely turn his hips and run backwards, because he's kind of watching here and closing this down. However, now Baumgartel steps. Now, without any communication, you have Baumgartel and Orozco stepping to the ball, leaving Polvara with 2 guys here in the attacking third. And then here's what happens. They slot in one, takes an unfortunate touch, and Polvara then closes on him. But then you're leaving Anders Dreyer, 19 goals, 19 assists last season, and a great half volley into the side pocket.
Yeah, and Polvara, again, remember everyone, Polvara, not a center back. This is new to him. I mean, you're not going to be like, okay, write him off now, because we're investing in him. Obviously, we went out and got him, and this is not his natural position. He probably is more of a moth to a flame when you think about going to get the ball and trying to close down an attacker in the situation. So room to grow there, absolutely. And I like what you started with, Justin, because this was a theme for the game. San Diego, say what you want about them. They were a great team last year, probably going to be in the upper echelons this year as well. They knew what we were going to bring. They knew exactly what we were going to bring, and we played right into it. They baited those central balls. And we have two central midfielders in this game, in my opinion, Justin, who they might get there, but they're not at a point where I feel like comfortability on the ball in the midfield is their strong suit, right? Between Durkin and Edelman. And maybe they'll get, again, room to grow for sure, especially in a guy like Edelman. But I don't have the utmost confidence in Edelman or Durkin, taking that ball in the half turn and looking forward or spraying it out wide and in playing in a congested midfield where they have a 4-3-3 kind of just really congested centrally. They're welcoming that ball out to the wide center backs. They don't care about that. But if you try to come centrally, they want you to do that because they're going to poke it off that foot or just get right up the throat of whoever was receiving that ball and make it hell. And they did, and we played into that time and time again, and we were not able to press centrally, get the ball centrally to progress, which also highlights a Leuven absence as well on the team. So without a guy like Leuven or a Hartel, to me, your central game plan pretty much moot, no matter who you play.
Yeah, I would say I could, from that standpoint, Jake, if you're San Diego and you see an Edelman or a Durkin get the ball and you're within 5 yards of them, I bet you their game plan was just sprint at these guys. Make them beat you by dribbling out of space because that's not what they're known for. So, I mean, just 4 minutes later, it should have been 2-0. Berkey, he won. I did not like what he did there. And he tried to pay a 40-yard ball with his left foot on the ground to Simon, who wasn't there. I will say Simon needs to be showing there, but he doesn't need to do that. Tic-tac-toe, San Diego's right there. Dreyer misses from the exact same spot that he scored. I don't know how he didn't put this one away. This was an easier one than his actual goal. And then 5 minutes later, just back line, not even on the screen, not staying up with our defensive holding midfielders. And Baumgartel comes sprinting up, dives in. San Diego gets a breakaway, causing Berkey to make his third diving save of the game just 12 minutes in. And it was a rough start within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think in the opening 15 and even after that, kind of the opening 30 of this match, had a guy like Roman Berkey or, a top goalkeeper in MLS not been on the team, I'm watching this on play. Like, because Berkey is closest to me on the pitch at this moment on the field. I mean, made a couple of just class. I'm not going to go world class, but point blank, very, very high quality saves from a goalkeeper that, in my opinion, is, the 2-0 scoreline doesn't look great or fondly on a goalkeeper of his ilk, but he made some really, really good saves. And if it wasn't specifically him in that, I think it could have been over way, way earlier. Because going into halftime, I'm not going to jump there right now, Justin. I'm going to talk about some more of this. I was looking at this saying, hey, this is glass half full. Could have been a hell of a lot worse had it not been for him between the pipes. But just the fact that we were in this game after that first half, Justin, I don't know if it said more about us or San Diego because they just couldn't kill us off, but they had a lot of opportunities.
No, I think it says more about them, unfortunately, Jake, because I think they could have put those away. And we weren't. It wasn't like we were making good defensive plays. It was really Roman Berkey bailing us out. And then to your point, though, then we get to the 23rd minute mark, and this one is where everyone keeps talking about it. And yes, I know that he's going to want this one back, Mr. Simon Betcher. First, before we even get to the actual missed finish there, I want to call out Durkin. This was on a positive note. There's another great run by him. Back-to-back games of him just stepping into an open space when Santo has the ball out left. If you watch him and play this back, he is looking around and goes, oh, crap, there is 30 yards of open space in front of me. He steps up, calls for it, puts his hand up. Santos passes it to him. And then Durkin, instead of trying to step on it, take it out of there, a perfect one-time ball into Miggy, who I also want to call out, was originally offside, so we're trying to make the run, didn't get the ball from Santos. Very maturely and very smartly gets back on sides and in a great position. One time, perfectly weighted pass from Durkin. Miggy looks up, finds a streaking Simon Betcher going right inside of the 6. And I don't know if Simon thought he was going to get, the ball wasn't going to get through, or he might have ran into the keeper. You got to put that one away. His foot was just too open. He redirects it, but not enough, and which is a hard thing to do, honestly, in that position. So you know that he wants that one back. Out of all people, he would agree as well. Nothing else to it. We got to finish that, and it's 1-1.
Yeah, no, and Betcher, he'd be the first one to tell you that one's got to be the back of the net, especially in a game. And then now you kind of hit fast forward and say now there really weren't that many opportunities that followed that one. So especially in hindsight, you've got to make the most of that. I'm still not going to blame this game on Betcher. I mean, he's just been drugged through the mud these last couple of days on the miss, but to me, it was a lot of more chance creation that was really more of our downfall and defensive lapses and just overall game plan. Again, I got to tip my cap literally to Mikey Varas and the San Diego team. I mean, they're a better team, better coach at this point, and they They just executed a game plan that far outclassed ours. In that first half, we did get settled in eventually into it, and manage a lot more neutral zone, I would say, where neither team really had a ton of clear cut great chances, and that's what gave me hope in that second half. And it was blind hope, right? It wasn't like we were showing a lot to say that we deserved more in this game, but it was 1-0 against a team that could have killed us in the first 15. So fortunate to get there. You're really hoping that DeMay takes the guys into the locker room and says, hey, you guys have an opportunity here to scrap and get something, especially when you're kind of up against it away from home. And he made a change as well, because outside of what you mentioned, Justin, on that nice, really great opportunity that ended with Betcher, that was left-sided buildup for us. And that left side was targeted the entire match via Dreyer, going offensively at us on the defensive side. So between Santos and Durkin, they were really exposed for a lot of that first half. And then, DeMay, credit to him, says that's enough. I'm going to now shift to Wallum to deal on the right side. And I'm going to bring in, Wallum to deal on the left side. He was on the right. And I'm going to bring Totland in on the right. It didn't last long, right, with Totland having an abdominal injury, of course. So who really knows if that would have been the right response? And I think it was still okay in the second half. And, not enough, obviously, because they get on the board again.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part, Jake, is that it's like a halftime move, and I'm like, okay, this is an interesting one. And Santos wasn't doing a whole lot out there. It wasn't like he was making moves, a lot of highlights, like as we talked about on the first game. But then this second goal, again, it's a tricky situation. But again, it's mainly because we're getting beat with some easy line breaking passes, and then we're going to attack. So we're going to pause it right here. Look at the space here. You can see Polvara's looking at this. We have 3 San Diego attackers that are pretty much by Edelman and almost by Durkin as well. So again, we're leaving our 3 center backs, if you want, and then if you want to say the wingers as well, kind of out to dry. And we're not giving them any second level or layer of defense in front of them. As we hit play here, it's a ball that comes through. Polvara steps. Fine with me, because at least he didn't hesitate and get caught in no man's land. However, if you're stepping, you got to win ball or you got to win man or both. And he does neither. And they don't even touch the ball. It just goes through his legs. Like, in my opinion, if you're stepping there, Jake, you got to go to ground. You got to make sure that one of those two, if not both, are getting stopped and not getting by you. However, we leave both go by us. And then right here, it's just kind of Durkin. I don't know what that half challenge is. Same thing. If you're going to go down, take the ball, take the man. I don't care. It's not going to be a red as long as you wrap around him. It's fine. And then you have Baumgartel here. I think it's fine that he kind of comes to the ball, but then there's no one there to be able to. I think Valum then should have took that inside runner and tracked him in. That's a little bit harsher on Valum because Polvara's out of position. Polvara does a great job to get back here. And again, I think, in my opinion, you go down to the ground again if you didn't already. And you make sure that this guy doesn't get a shot off point blank on Berkey, back of the net. And it's the 54th minute and we're down 2-0. My biggest complaint about this entire play, Jake, was that I didn't even get to see it live. Apple TV cut out. And I was like on Twitter, like, is no one else freaking out about this? And then they just come back and there's smoke in the air and they're celebrating. I'm like, are you kidding? I was shocked.
Yeah, really unfortunate. Obviously, I was able to witness it. You didn't miss anything in terms of any fun in those moments. But I want to go back to, because I think it's important, like game plan. I've already talked about how I give credit to San Diego because I want to talk about one thing offensively and defensively for them. Offensively, I think they really, and we tried to do the same thing to them, but just to not the success level that they did, but they baited us into that press and they have enough quality on the ball with Dua, by the way, the center back for San Diego. Oh my God. I would kill to have him on St. Louis. Just so comfortable, both dribbling out of pressure, passing out of pressure, just such a good ball presence for a defender. And they took their time in build-up. They kind of waited for us to kind of collapse in. And because we are so committed on that press with Dirk and Edelman both, that one pass leaves your whole back line exposed. And you've now separated St. Louis into two. You've got your offensive sort of pressing side, and you've got your defensive back line, which is maybe 3, maybe 4, depending on where the wing backs are at the time. And on the defensive side, they did a really good job, I feel like, really taking our wing backs out of the game, where they were so successful and instrumental for us, all of that Charlotte match, where we could look for Wallum and look for Santos, and they had space and time to make up their minds, either come centrally or spread and go vertically and keep going, pressing down for a cross or whatnot. Do you remember really any sequences of that in this game? Because San Diego was prepared for that. They were on top of us the moment that ball arrived, and we had to go backwards. And it's evident. And you look at the pass volumes in our defenders, Justin. But again, I give kudos to them because they took our medicine that we gave out in Charlotte and gave it right back to us. And what we brought in Charlotte was no longer valuable.
Jake, I love that you brought that point up because I tried going to heat maps. You know how we were so impressed with Vollum and Santos getting
Yeah.
up the field? Just nothing. It was all on our defensive third. And that's because we could not get the ball out wide to them. And if we did, then it was immediately hounded to your point to then circle back around. And that's what kind of worried me when you take a step back and look at this from a themes perspective or a holistic look at the game is that when we were a new club in 2023, it's like, oh, these people, they don't know how to play against us. This energy drink soccer. We're getting wins off the bat. I was like, all right, maybe we have a little bit more life here. We're going to change up our style. It seems like San Diego figured out in our second match of the season. They probably saw what we did with Charlotte and said, that's not going to happen here. Beat us up the middle with Durkin, Edelman, Perez, and Sangbin. And that is not a recipe for success for us.
No, certainly not. And I feel like after that game, Justin, yeah, we made some subs. A toy shirt comes in, and it felt like San Diego had the game by the balls, right? Like they kind of took the foot off the gas. I don't think they were necessarily clamoring for a third because I feel like it kind of changed. It became a little more even then, and I don't think that necessarily is a credit or a compliment to us. I think it's just more of game state and management overall by San Diego because we had a couple late flurries, like a toy shirt chance sticks out to me, but I don't think we really, and again, the expected goals we can talk about too in this game because I don't think you look at San Diego's number as just on an eye test and say that really reflects. Because in terms of just control, we want to control matches, we want to possess, be an antagonist. It was anything but in this game as a St. Louis fan, and just being there in the stands, it felt like we had no control over our destiny in this one at any point really in the match. And outside of a couple flashes, like we mentioned, that first half opportunity, even the toy shirt opportunity, it felt like we ran up against a team that knew who they were, had more chemistry, had more of an identity, and executed a game plan a lot more flawlessly than we were able to. And again, playing at home too. So, you have that friendly. And by the way, Justin, I'll give credit to San Diego more from an experience perspective. Super fun. Like the fans were really, really engaged and they took part, like the whole stadium took part in the chants. And it was just really different and just not a friendly atmosphere for us to play in. Not that it was like, hateful or vengeful at all, but definitely a really raucous type crowd. And it was cool to be a part of. And obviously they were buzzing off of what was going on in the field because also the dryer of it all. I mean, what a special player. I said literally the exact quote before this match. If you want to, again, look at the Hartel case again, look at Anders Dreyer. I mean, that guy, he alone could have beaten, our defense on multiple occasions just because of what he can do off the ball, on the ball, being the creator, being the finisher. We just don't have that type of guy. And I don't even think that guy is even Hartel, right? I think he's a little bit different than Anders Dreyer, but it's a reality check. It's a reality check game. If you're St. Louis City, you're not going to be all rose colored glasses, rose tinted glasses for us this season. As much as you want to think that for match day one, this is back to reality for us.
It really is. It hit home hard. And for anybody that's like, what is Jake talking about with that atmosphere? Like it looked like it was pretty dead from a numbers perspective. Their stadium holds 35,000 people. So there were 22,000, which is pretty much what Energizer Park holds, that were screaming loud. And obviously when your team goes up in the fourth minute, you are bouncing up and down, maybe even drinking a little bit more beers on that Sunday night. So it was loud from what I could tell back at home as well. But Jake, are there any more themes or trends that we really want to touch on before we kind of start hopping into the rest and not just directly into the preview for Seattle, but also some stats around the MLS?
No, not necessarily. I think we hit on some of the big themes. I just want to, as much as I love where we're trying to go with our new identity and being more possession focused and just trying to control games, I also don't want to do that at all costs either, Justin. And like one salient point I can get to on that is goal kicks. Many of them in the first half. And I was a goalkeeper. I know how this feels when you're just not the better team. But you do have something that you want to do that you've been coached to do, through training and whatnot. And we had this just crazy commitment to play out of the back and starting with Baumgartel, a couple of yards off of Berkey. And again, I respect wanting to hone that even in really tough circumstances in San Diego. And at some point you do have to kind of stick to it because where else are you going to learn it than up against the best? But when you want to win as well, you have to balance that. And I think we do have to have other tricks up our sleeve to be able to turn to in moments like that, where you're missing your creator, you're missing your central midfield orchestrator in Leuven, you're missing two of your better center backs on paper. And I don't like to me, we always struggle with these freaking definitions, but it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I feel like every time we had a goal kick, it was right down our throats within 10 seconds of us taking that spot kick. So again, it's just a larger theme. Again, I like where we want to go, but does it have to be the only thing we can do?
No, and that's a perfect point, because honestly, I do not appreciate when it's just like Berkey and then 5 yards to his left is Baumgartel, and then we just pass the ball. Like, it's obviously going there, and they are just drooling, waiting for this to happen. And a team that is so technically sound in their rest defense as San Diego, they are going to be covering that Edelman and that Durkin. You're not going to have an Edelman and Durkin that can have like a Celio footwork to spin out and get out of there very quickly. So that's the hard part for that, Jake, is like, if you're really looking to build out of the back, you're not going to be able to do it with the guys that we have. Yes, they might be better with their feet, but who are they going to, and how are they going to hold that ball up? Like, you think you're going to go up that left side and hand the ball to Miggy Perez and expect him to hold off a defender or two? So I agree. I like the idea of playing out of the back, but you have to have some almost plays or something along those lines of like being able to move the ball. You can't just like tap it to your left and then Baumgartel puts his foot literally on top of the ball and stands there, because then you are just dead in the water.
Agreed. Well, let's transition out of this, Justin, into a little bit of news before we get into the preview for Seattle coming to Energizer Park. In between our last show and this show, Betcher was the most recent extension of the team. And I think overall thoughts on this one is, even now watching this last performance, a lot of people want to see extensions and say, well, that translates to, resulting performances and just reward for overall play. And I think I got some flack for, attributing any bit of that extension to overall performance and play, even though I do think as much as people want to harp on him for this last game, I still think there's a lot more to see from him in this first half of the season, especially, as I do think he will get an extended run in that starting role. So if anything, Justin, I think what we can say is you're going to see a lot more of these extensions, both here and around the league, as the league and all the front offices prepare for this fall spring calendar shift. So this, now gets him extended through 27-28 season with a 2028-29 option as well. So he'll be with the team. This extension, like, again, everyone's thinking like, oh, multi-year extension likely. No, this is a very, very actually short extension, but it aligns him now to the playing calendar as well. So you're also, I think, on top of that, seeing more of a front-footed sort of building on the roster. You're building a lot of these new extensions through that 20, 28, 29, even 30 time frame. And, much people want to say, well, Betcher's not your guy. Well, fine. He doesn't have to be the guy. He can be the guy on the bench that replaces or provides something different to the guy that you actually are going to go out and sign. Like, not every extension needs to be because they're a starter level, right? So want to make that point. Mbake, cannot wait to see him. I know he made the bench in this last one, so it'll be really, really good to have him and Falou fall back. We'll talk about injuries coming up here shortly, Justin. But Cordova is in practice, in training, Justin. I don't think we've heard any word on the visa process, which has bogged us down with Mbake. But do we have anything else besides, that on Cordova? I mean, again, I don't think he's going to come in and save us either. But good to have another option that you probably could have benefited from having on Sunday night.
No, I think it's a positive, just to be able to add another kind of option there, as you already mentioned on Betcher, and then also to give people an understanding of where we're going with this. Yeah, like we just extended Durkin too, right? And again, that is not going to be like, well, now Durkin's our starting six. Like, no, at some point you also just can't extend starters only. Like, there has to be a build out with this as well, and so that's also why Cordova is just on a loan through June. We're not loaning guys through the end of December, because now we're starting to get into the mindset of that next calendar season when we do the short sprint in the spring of 2027 and then go into the full new season in the fall of 2027. So it's one, just keep in mind when we're doing through that. But Jake, I like this next segment that we have. Go ahead.
I want to make one more point on that too, and then we'll go to this next segment, which is a lot of fun. I can't wait to. The idea, and this is the same in the business world too. You and I both know this. Sometimes the better way of having talent is retaining talent versus going out and acquiring new talent. Like, those retention costs are usually less than going out and acquiring talent, that might be of a similar type level. So why don't, if you believe in these players like a Betcher, Durkin, even if you don't believe in them to be the guy in those respective positions, hanging on to them as known quantities can also be very valuable. If you letting them go and going out and finding someone of a similar caliber, that's going to be more expensive. You'll probably have to pay some sort of fee unless you happen to align that with being a free agent. So just want to make a point on that too, because it extends past just managing a soccer team. But former City guys, wasn't all doom and gloom for the former City Red over this past week and weekend, both here and abroad. Klaus played 66 minutes for LA Galaxy, logged 2 goals. Both those 2 goals coming in the first 15 minutes as well in their 3-0 rout of Charlotte. Charlotte not having a great start to the season, but Klaus is, as he is currently tied for MLS Golden Boot, and he was included in the team of the match day. He's having a great start to his life in LA. Indy went the full 90 for Philadelphia, scored a PK. They could not muster enough, though, in a 2-1 loss against New York City FC. But looking across the league in MLS, Justin Marcanic going full 90, Padelford getting a couple minutes, Jay Reed getting a full 90 in SKC, AZ starting for Vancouver, Bartlett starting for DC, even Stroud starting for DC. So did Kojima. And I'm not saying like we miss these guys and we need all these guys for us, but again, it's interesting to me that you look at some of the players that have not been good enough, or at least have not been considered to stay here long term, and they seem to be making on just fine.
Yeah, and it's also, we're not just trying to do this to like be like, oh, why did we hold on to these guys? Like, sometimes they're a better fit in different systems, different cities, independent, whatnot. It's just kind of it's fun to just kind of track them and see how City does as they progress. And there's a bunch of guys on this list too that we'll kind of cover throughout the season. You look at like Jensen, Horn, Gioacchini, Doyer, Thor, Sam. We can give you guys updates kind of sprinkled in. None of them did anything incredible in the last week. They are getting minutes for their different clubs across the Austrian top tier, Greek top tier, Danish top tier. So it's kind of funny. But Jake, we are a City podcast, and we are going to hop into the Seattle preview, which is not as funny because when looking at our matchup history, and I was going back through there, I'm like, oh my God, I kind of forgot about that. And then it kind of hits you in the face every time we do one of these previews. 2023, we lost 2-0 and 3-0. 2024, we lost 2-1, and then we lost 2-0. And then 2025, we got our first dub, 1-0, and then we lost 4-1 at home, lost 4-1 away. So overall, in 3 seasons against Seattle, we have 3 goals for and 13 goals against, with 3 points out of a possible 18 points. Woof.
And I'm going to verify this after, Justin, because this used to be what I would call like one of our bogey teams. And they're a bogey team, by the way, for a lot of teams in this league. And we'll get into kind of why that is. But I want to say the only team that comes to mind that I don't think we've beaten yet is LAFC, at least in the West, because we haven't played everyone yet in the East. So I guarantee you there's some Eastern teams we have not beaten. But in the West, when you play them twice a year, I want to say it's LAFC. I know Seattle was on that list until last season. But need to verify that. Fun little fact there. But yeah, this is a good team that, it makes a lot, for a lot of teams to handle. And they one of the better well-run teams as well. Just a great model to kind of follow, a lot of good retention, a lot of familiar faces that stick around in Seattle because of the culture, because of the successes they've had. They finished 5th in the West last season on 53 points, and they won the league's cup. So they had silverware to show for it, beating Miami 3-0. So Miami, they value that tournament just as much. I mean, because they won the past season, and Miami won MLS Cup. So they're always, I feel like, Justin, whether it's CONCACAF Champions Cup, US Open Cup, the League's Cup, MLS Cup, the Supporter Shield, Seattle's kind of always knocking on, if not winning, one of those. And we'll kind of get into why, but they had 58 goals for last season, 48 against, so a +10 differential, but 8th best in the MLS in goal output. And then when you think about goals conceded, about 13th best, so kind of falling just about average there. But Justin, talk to us about some of the difference makers they brought in, because I think when you get to the end of it, you kind of realize like they didn't really bring in a whole lot. But that's because they have a lot of talent.
Right, exactly. And I mean, when you're a team that finishes, what do we say, the 5th in the West last season, and I believe that's probably like 10th or so in the Supporter Shield, you don't need to do a whole lot. And they do have a lot of guys that were even on the bench that were able to make some contributions, but they did bring in 2 guys. And Jake, right before I hop into that, you are right. We have not beaten LAFC in the MLS regular season. It said, I think there was like a friendly where we might have beaten them like preseason or whatever. But ultimately, I think we have 2 draws and 4 losses. So something to keep in mind on as well. I'm sure that'll hit me just as hard as it did when I was doing this research. But Ryan Saylor, center back, free agent signing from Miami, where he spent the last 4 seasons with them. He was picked number 9th overall in the 2022 MLS draft. They added him for a little bit more defensive presence there. And then they had 2 guys that they called up after their successful stints with their MLS Next Pro side, the Coma Defiance, and that's Sebastian Gomez and Yu Tsukanome. I'm just going to I think this year I'm just go with what you got. I'm trying my best, but it sounds worse when you try to stutter through it. So, but Jake, it's kind of surprising they did not do some more incomings because of one of their larger outgoings. But the one thing I'll say on this outgoing is I'll let you kind of bring through it because it was an exciting one for the MLS nonetheless, was that didn't have a whole lot of contribution for Seattle. Like it's not like the biggest name, but I think the upside is the main reason that fee and the team that picked him up was pretty cool.
Yeah. So two things. One, again, on the incomings, they do such a good job building talent as well on their own pipeline. Like when you do that right, like we need to get there as well as a club. You don't need to go out and buy all the best players all the time. You can develop them here, bring them up gradually. Like that's why I think Corey Ray is really, I'm hoping, going to translate here in St. Louis is a solidified pipeline. I'm not saying like, no more, we're assigning this homegrown. We're not going to see him for 3 years. Like I want to see guys break into the first team and gradually become a starter in that position. Like we're still early on a couple guys, and there's potentials out there. I'm not saying there's not, but they do a really great job of that. So back to this outgoing. Do you have a point on that?
I was just going to say, I was going to add to that. If once you'll realize it once we get into the key players to watch and their injuries, the longevity of these guys, not only in the MLS, but specifically for Seattle. Multiple of their key guys, not just guys that are on the bench filling roles, have been with the club for 5 years or more, which is impressive in today's now and age.
Yeah, and it's, by the way, so rare, not just in this league, but just in general. So again, another big feather in their cap. But Obed Vargas is the name we've been teasing for like 3 minutes now. But he's a 20-year-old homegrown from Seattle. He's not from Seattle. He's from Anchorage, Alaska. But he's come up in Seattle, at least through their programs. And he was sold to Atletico Madrid for $3.5 million plus add-ons. He's potentially valued at more than that. I know they hit a really great, Justin, a really great FIFA Club World Cup. When Seattle was doing their business there. And obviously they didn't really make it very far, but I think he did play against Atletico Madrid, and it's his dream team. Like it's the team, the team that he follows most closely. I think he looks up and idolizes guys like Antoine Griezmann as well. And he met him in the tunnel before. There's a really fun video of him, talking to him and how much of a dream it will be to play for this team. So when you think about like a storybook type, story for him right now, what a dream. Like so cool to go play for that team at a young age. And it sounds like they're looking at actually, really embedding him. There's already an American there. I know Obed is Mexican and he's has a dual national, but he has chosen Mexico. So that sucks if it really takes off for him. But Johnny Cardoso is also Atletico Madrid. So Atletico Madrid's kind of changing their guard as well, because they've been a really historically kind of old team and they're investing much more young now. So I think it's really cool. And to see it like that, again, MLS product, born and raised in the States. Yes, the dual national of it all, but to have him developed at Seattle's academy, come up, really cut his teeth in MLS and then make the jump, not just overseas, like not some Norwegian or Danish, small club, but to Atletico Madrid, a Champions League powerhouse, someone that's always kind of sniffing around those trophies. I think it says a lot about him, and it says a lot about the Sounders organization entirely.
I think the cool thing about that story too is that he was getting interest from Liga MX being Mexican, and some of the fees in the range of $10 million. However, the club was doing what's in the best interest for the player, and he really wanted to go overseas, not down to Mexico. So they essentially were turning down, if you look at that, it's like $6.5 million to try to help the guy that they brought up in their system. And that goes a long way. I think that speaks volumes about the system that they create in the teams that they're putting together. So he had, this was Atletico Madrid was on the short list, obviously his favorite of the teams that he could have joined. So cool for them. To mention, though, I think it's more about the upside. The 20-year-old in 2024 had 1 goal, 7 assists, and 30 games played, starting 28 of those. And then in 2025, he had 3 goals, 5 assists, starting all 26 games. So, like, those aren't, like, incredible numbers. But if you look at that, that's from an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old. Now he's 20. So I think it's more of the upside, and that's where Atletico Madrid brings in. But, Jake, we talked a lot about the players that are outgoing and incoming. What about the squad and who is actually managing them into this game on Saturday?
Yeah, so Brian Schmetzer remains in charge in Seattle, usually keen on a 4-2-3-1 type setup, occasionally more of a 4-3-3 in possession. And I'll just kind of pull a couple of things. I just feel like Seattle, the more you can talk about them in sort of comparisons or hyperbole, even sometimes, they become a lot more relatable, or this connects more with fans, because it connected with me a lot when I was doing some research on this team. But I saw a quote here that Brian Schmetzer's teams rarely reinvent themselves; they refine. And you kind of look at that in their offseason sort of activity so far, not a whole lot of splashes. And yeah, the big outgoing here, but not a guy that they were really overly dependent on either. So Seattle's a team that is always kind of in spitting distance of the game. Either they're on top by 1 or 2 goals, or they're maybe down 1 or 2 goals, but they're never getting blown out. They're also never blowing teams out. The fun takeaway, or the fun kind of comparison I saw for them that just kind of struck me and really hit home was they are an MLS version of one of those teams you run up against in playoff hockey, where, yeah, not your superstars, not the most talented team out there, but boy, do these guys beat the crap out of you. They've been there before. They know what it takes to win a best of 7 series and advance in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And this is a team that does that. Again, they're never, to me at least, like the best team, like the team you love the most to watch, but they're always around when it comes down to it in the end of the season and in the tournaments. They just know how to use their experience to leverage and make games, tight, even when they don't deserve to be there. And they punish you on your mistakes. And they have veteran led and, origin players from Seattle in their academy, or at least been there for a long time, that believe in this team. And they have that chemistry to show for it. So just the more I look at him, Justin, I'm just like, this is a blueprint, right? Like, you really want to become a club like that.
And we've mentioned it before, like this team is like the U.S. men's national team graveyard in some sense, but a lot of those guys are still producing. And it shows with how detailed and how structured their attack is. One, their buildup. They're having their center backs spread it wide. Then they have their fullbacks also push high. And they'll have their what used to be Vargas kind of drop in between lines and get the ball, kind of like a Leuven in some sense there. And that's a part of their buildup. But then, too, as they progress through that, they're going to progress through 3 channels. You have Rusnak, who's doing central combinations. You have Roldan, who's overlapping on the right. And then you would have Jordan Morris doing vertical runs on the left, currently injured, but that's going to be replaced by Paul Rothrock. We'll move on to that here in a second as well. But in the final third, then, what are they doing once they get those balls in? They're not just lumping them into the box and throwing them up in the air. They are looking for early crosses that are on the ground or cutbacks as well from the wide channels, and then creating chaos with those if you're not clearing them. Either one, if you can get to clear them, or two, if you are trying to get on the end of them and make sure they're not getting out of the box. Ball's kind of bouncing around because they have very technical and guys that have been there before that know how to finish.
And I agree, just like very, very methodical, right, in the approach offensively. It's not chaos ball. And then defensively, it kind of mirrors a lot of the same, too. Like on the defensive side, they try to compress the midfield. They're not going to make it easy to feed balls centrally into a Leuven, a Dirk, and Edelman, whoever's going to be there for us in this. They will deny those central lanes to the best of their ability. And when they're defending, they don't just press out of their shoes. They do press, but they do it very intentionally based on certain triggers. Think of things like, a loose first touch by a Timo Baumgartel, or, a Polvara, or a wide pass sort of touchline. Like, hey, you spray one out, a banana shaped pass to a Santos or a Wallum. Well, I'm not going to let him breathe when it gets to him. Or a backward pass in midfield, a little bumper pass from Edelman or Durkin back to a center back. Okay, now we're on top of that center back. So they look for very certain things to just make life very uncomfortable for you on the defensive side of the ball. And they've got center backs that can get up and win headers. Strong aerial presence from Yamar and Reagan as well. So 2 good center backs. And they don't concede cheaply, Justin, is where I look at Seattle. They don't, concede many direct balls into the box. They just make it very difficult. It's almost like I think about, the movie Miracle, and when they were talking about the Soviet goaltending, when you score on him, you better keep that puck. There's not many that get past him. I don't think it's necessarily the same for the goalkeeping, even though they do have some strong goalkeeping as well. But defensively, they're just structured, very sound. They know who they are. They don't get overexposed. So you look at offensive, defensively. Again, this is a team that has been this way for a very, very long time. And they had the rank and sort of form to show for it on the away side of things, Justin, because they're coming here, right? Not here where I am, but here where you are. Number 5 in the league in away form. They were averaging 1.1 points on the road. Hey, if you can do that over the course of a season, you're going to be mightily successful when you have Lumen Field to come back to.
Jake, we were averaging 0.94 points per match last season as a whole. So these guys are doing better on the road than we did across all 34 games. It was extremely impressive. And thank God they're coming here. And I know we're probably going to go there. I haven't looked far ahead. Last year at home, they were 10-1-6. They only lost 1 game. And so they had 10 wins, 1 loss, and 6 draws. So happy for them. Happy for the boys. We come back to Andrew Park. A little bit more about Seattle. Their XG rank is also number 5 in the MLS at a 1.6. So they're averaging, just with the chances they're creating, they should be scoring about 2 goals per game as well. Their goals against XG is then 1.34. That's top 10 good as well. So like we talked about, just kind of a sound team, steady Eddie through and through. You're not seeing a whole lot of splashes or flashes, because also it's not like they're giving it to you in the first half and then letting off in the second half, or vice versa. They're number 9 in first half and number 8 in second half. So it's a very steady Eddie team. But Jake, there are some pretty bigger names and some more impressive stats for some of their key players.
There are, and I got to go back one more time, Justin, to the home away side of it all, because I texted you this morning this fun fact that I saw on the home versus away dynamic, and I teased it already this show. I have to say it. So far this season, home teams have only lost 4 of 29 games in 2026. So just through the first 2 match days. In Orlando accounts for 2 of those 4. So home has been important for a very long time in MLS, and it's, by the way, important across many, many leagues. But to this level, is this more of how things are going to go this season, generally in MLS, or is this just an anomaly the first couple of weeks? But again, it breathes a little bit of life into us, right? Because we are hosting Seattle in this one. Had we been going, I think we might be talking a little bit differently about this one, but still got to do the due diligence, got to talk with the key players. Albert Rusnak is their creator. He is a DP. He's a 31-year-old DP for Seattle. Spent 5 seasons at RSL. You might have remembered him. It's just a great, great player, a great creator, has great vision, and he does a little bit of the balance in the goals and assists. It's not just all assists, and it's not just as a goal scoring central attacking midfielder. He does it on both sides. 10 goals, 16 assists in 2024, 11 and 10 in 25. Already's got 1 and 1 in 2026 and playing those almost 2 full 90s. So he's off to his most dangerous ways already in this opening of the campaign for Seattle. Doesn't show many signs of slowing down, but again, those are like, Justin, if you gave Leuven a full season, I feel like that's where he should kind of end up, is double digits, maybe not way into, but double digits on both goals and assists, because Rusnak's doing both.
Yeah, and that's the one for him is another guy that we've already talked about, how this, I want to say company, but this club is really holding on to their very own. This is, yeah, he did 5 seasons for RSL. Now he's in his 5th season for Seattle. And another impressive one for them, Christian Roldan as well, midfielder. He is 30 years old, U.S. men's national team guy. He's in his 12th season for Seattle. Last season, he had 1 goal and 9 assists, which tied his career high in assists. So this guy has still got it. This is a guy that's been brought into camp by Pochettino as well, and someone to keep an eye on in this game as well. And then another one that I kind of added in here because he had a little bit more of a breakout last season, and he's going to have a little bit more say in this one as well with Jordan Morris being out, is Paul Rothrock, 27-year-old midfielder, Seattle native as well. In 2025, he had 4 goals and 7 assists, starting 27 of his 33 games played. He already has a goal and assist in their home opener this season after subbing on for Jordan Morris, and then a full 90 last match as well. So this is a guy that you kind of saw, like, I think like people at First City were like, oh, go get Rothrock. And I'm like, I think everything was working in the background for Seattle. I don't think he was ever leaving, but he would have been a very exciting player for us to sign.
Yeah, and it's not where it ends, right? They have talent, and they have talent like you might recognize names on, and they have talent that you wouldn't, but have had great seasons and great times with them. Jesus Ferreira is one that rings out like the name brand, like been with the U.S. men's national team, not any longer. And I don't think he's been, knock your socks off in Seattle either. Been better days in Dallas for him. 4 goals, 7 assists last season for him. But a guy that you may not hear of very often is a 30-year-old U.S. international that had a huge season last season, in that 29 going on 30. Not many guys have much twilight left in your career, but Danny Musovski did. He had 14 goals, 4 assists last season and 17 full 90. So a very productive player on a minimal sample size. And he got a lot more opportunity last season. And again, Seattle is a place that I feel like the whole is better than just maybe some of those individual players, but even some of your guys that might have been overlooked, might be on the way out, might be, definitely just overlooked by a lot of front offices. There's not much value left to give. Look at a guy like Danny Musovski. They're getting a lot of value out of him. And fortunately, Justin, we're facing a team that, yeah, it's early in the season, but they've already got a couple of key injuries. We teed one up with Jordan Morris going on with a non-contact injury in the opening match. Devastating. I don't really know if they know the full extent of the injury yet. I think they thought it'd be a lot worse than what we're seeing and hearing so far, but that's not where it ends.
No, it doesn't. But so, yeah, just for an update for Jordan Morris, this is his 10th season with Seattle. I keep wanting to emphasize that because it seems like a club that everybody wants to play for and sticks with as they take care of their guys. But he did take part in training on Tuesday, a limited version of it. So he's expecting to miss a couple more games, but he will not be available for Seattle on Saturday. And then Pedro de la Vega fractured his patella in October. He's still out until May or so. And he is an important part of this team as well. He had 4 goals and 5 assists in just 13 full 90s last season before he did that. We mentioned Ryan Saylor coming in for them. He's a knee injury till late April. And then a new one this week, Jake, Paul Rothrock, dealing with a foot knock. I love that they say that. Just like, yeah, what is that? It's just like a swollen ankle that he took in the RSL match. Needs to be assessed ahead of Saturday's matchup against us. But that is something that is still TBD as of right now.
So how do we beat this team? Right. I mean, I think there's a couple of things that need to be true for us to, be successful in this match. Because yeah, take the home and away thing is fun because especially it's pretty crazy stat at this point so far, even in the season. But a lot of things need to go right for us, especially in the wake of what we just witnessed in match day two. I think you got to win the battle in a couple areas. One, the center backs. They're confident, they're strong, they will win aerial duels, they will be very, very physical. Get them defending open space, force them to defend wide channels. If you're Simon Betcher, tease them out of position as much as you possibly can, or as saying Ben, work your way towards just kind of destabilizing these two in Jackson Reagan and Yamar as well. Fast vertical attacks can also give them some issues. Space behind fullbacks, Alex Roldan, Christian's brother, is a great wingback, a great fullback in this league, likes to drive forward. They will be a team that will push those numbers forward from their wide backs. Now, when they do that, they can be very successful. When they do it successfully, especially, they can be very, very successful. Now, that cross is not good. That cutback gets cut out immediately by one of our defenders, and we go north and south very quickly. Well, there's space that's been vacated by those fullbacks. Can you take advantage of that very, very quickly? Finally, Albert Rusnak, we just talked about him. If you can stop him, like think about how teams plan for us if Hartel's going to be available. They probably think, well, if we can get Hartel, we can get St. Louis. Well, if we can get Rusnak, I think we stand a much better opportunity at getting a point, if not three from this game. Their creativity will drop significantly if you can neutralize or just make life hell for him. Well, I don't know, Justin, if that's Durkin or Edelman shadowing or just sticking with him, just kind of chipping away at him, getting him frustrated, maybe taking a yellow, whatnot. You have to target him to be able to kind of, prevent Seattle from falling into their normal rhythm.
I think those are great points, Jake. And you know what? Enough about Seattle. Let's get into the Hoffman brothers predicted starting 11. Jake, it's going to be a little bit more exciting with this one. We saw that Hartel will be back with the team, tomorrow or so. So good news there, obviously. We do have some other injuries. Falu Fall is still out with his ankle. Edu Leuven still kind of TBD there, was not at practice this week as of right now. Ostrak still lower leg injury. Tyson Pierce with a hip. But we did add in, as we talked about, Cordova and Mbake. They are also in training. So a couple injuries here and there, but it's an interesting choice on what we're going to go with our starting 11 then.
It is. And those injuries that Justin just gave you all the update are brought to you by our friend Rob Schmickens and the Schmickens Injury Law Firm, our ball watching STL injury report. Yeah, Justin, we're hearing, IFAB and everyone, they're taking aim at reducing injury time or, time spent with the ball not in play. And real talk, Rob is aimed at whenever those are real injuries, whether with your family, your friends, on the job, at home, whatever, make sure you consider him for all of your injury needs. None of us plan to be in a car accident or to be the victim of some sort of thing that leaves us in a state that we were not in before and we lose some sort of valuable part of our life. So for any of your personal injury claims, or if you just have questions and you want to consider, how this process works, Rob is so approachable, so amazing. We love working with him, and he will press hard, play physical, and will not let the other side run out the clock on you. And the best part about this whole thing, Justin, again, he's a great guy, but you don't pay unless Rob wins your case. So make sure you give him a call if you have any sort of injury needs or you're just considering things. He will be more than happy to take that call. You can reach out to him at hurtinstl.com or call him at 314-222-4223 and mention us. And make sure that you mention that because you will get a special discount on the attorney's fees available to all of our listeners. So shout out to Schmickens Injury Law Firm, and we're hoping that there are going to be some improvements on the injury front here in the coming weeks and just overall availability. But Justin, lay it out for me. We know who's available now. We're seeing some improvements, some new availability we didn't see before. Talking about guys like Cordova. We're talking about guys like, finally Mbake seems to be in contention here. Maybe we'll, obviously Hartel not injury related, but should be available here. How are you feeling about this starting 11? Would you make changes based on what we just saw?
Obviously, we're going to just swap out Miggy for Hartel, and that would be, then we're back in that original starting 11. I do not want to, we're not going to trust that we're going to see Leuven there back on the field. So the only other change, Jake, that I would make, actually, I'm going to make two. The two changes I would make would be Mbake for Orozco. I think that can be almost an automatic swap. And then you can either play him on the left or him on the right, depending on where Polvara feels most comfortable. Because I would like to get Polvara out of that position once we get Falu Fall back. But until then, I'm going to go Polvara, Baumgartel, and Mbake across the back. What are your thoughts?
I like it. I'm hesitant to believe that they just throw Mbake into this game. But if he's healthy enough, if he's been training, right, in this time that's been taking forever to get his visa, which you'd certainly hope so. By the way, crazy, Jess, I don't know if you saw, but I think it was PSV or Feyenoord signed Raheem Sterling, and he didn't have his paperwork ready to actually practice with the team in the country. So they moved to, I think, Belgium temporarily so he could practice with them. The things that these teams do to integrate their players is crazy. Obviously, we can't do the same thing like that, but I want to see Mbake. I think if he's available and fit, should absolutely come in. And I think Orozco is the first name off the team sheet in that case. So I'm supportive of that change. I think there'll be a lot more continuity. Obviously, you sub out Miggy again for Hartel, like you mentioned. Unless Leuven's back, I don't see much midfield change. And now that Totland's out with an abdominal injury, that right side has become even more frail in terms of the cover there. So I think Wallum has to be there. I think Santos has to be your left wing back. So we're kind of now back in a situation. It's match day 3 we're preparing for, where there's not many decisions, right, Justin? Like if you're DeMay, there's not like, oh, well, it sucks because I can't play this guy now. There's a lot of decisions that make themselves based on availability.
Yeah, I would say, Jake, as we're going to that front three, though, I'm going to take Sangbin out. And so
Okay.
here's my thought process on that is, one, I think that Toy Shirt, if fully healthy, should be given a go. I think he's been a great spark, and I think he's given a chance to be that guy. And another reason is, yeah, I'd like the spark. You don't want to take that away. But Sangbin last game, or in the last 2 games, he has 117 minutes with 47 total touches. That's less than a lot of guys have in a single game, and only one in the opposition's box with 0 shots and only 1 chance created. And I believe it was on a cross as well. So I do not think that he's on the hot start right now. I would like to light a little fire underneath him, and maybe it's hey, you need to be coming off the bench. So in my opinion, is that Toy Shirt? I don't know. I would love to see it be Celio. However, I think from where DeMay would be going with this, I think it would be a Toy Shirt swap. So then you'd have Hartel and Toy Shirt underneath of Simon Betcher.
I think they're working their way towards that with Toy Shirt again. I think they're taking it really slow with him. I'm worried though, because I feel like the time we get to this and he gets a run on the team, if he's performing, he's gone. I mean, his contract doesn't run very long with us now. I think he's mid-season at the moment. So he'll need an extension as well if they do want to see more of him. Justin, what would you say to Makai Joyner getting a start here? I mean, very much a prove-it time for him. He hasn't seen minutes yet, I believe, in this season. And he got the final start in the last last campaign for us. The only thing I have with Toy Shirt is if you start Hartel, Toy Shirt underneath Betcher, it's really only Betcher's race to run in terms of trying to challenge the back line or get in behind. If you start Joyner, I think you have a little bit more of a balance there. You have legs, you have intensity on the press as well that Sangbin does bring. But I agree with you, Justin, overall that Sangbin has been nowhere near good enough so far. And maybe it's performances driven, maybe it's not a good fit for the system and the role he's being asked to play in, or maybe it's just because we don't have anyone else to challenge him at the moment. So I don't know. It's probably a combination of all those things. But if anyone on the attacking 3 is going to drop, Justin, I believe it should be him.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Sangbin. I wouldn't be surprised. And I honestly, Jake, I'm gonna go on record and say it right now. I think it's gonna be a Celio start. And the reason that I don't think it's gonna be Joyner is because I think Joyner can be a great spot, especially with Totland out now. He could come in for a Santos or a Vala and play on one of those wings. Because I think that's where when he gets his paint on his boots and he gets all the way to the edge of the pitch, I think that's when he really excels and he can get up and back. And I think he's got enough defensive presence to really hold his own there too. So I would not be surprised. You give me a Toy Shirt start, you give me a Celio start. And then you get me a Joyner brought in around the 70th minute. I would like that.
Yeah, I want to see minutes from him at least, right? Like he's probably the guy you have the most hope in right now of making some impact on the first team for our youth. But goals to the game, Justin, before we get into predictions and some of our best bets on this match, courtesy of our friends at DraftKings. But goals to the game, really just kind of a lot of an extension of the how do we beat them. I think if we're going to win this game, you have to establish control down our left side. So Seattle's attacking right side. We know they're very proficient in. If we can win that battle, whether that's Santos playing out there, whether that's Wallin playing out there, or if that's Durkin, essentially midfield left more sided positioning, we have to be able to negate that side of the attack. We were just exposed time and time again. Polvara was left exposed many times and, showed some of the frailties of not really knowing some of the tricks and trades of being a center back. So I think we'll need to be better there. I'm not saying you need to be the best or even know how to do everything now, but we need to be better in that position. I also think balance. Got to have balance in this team. Let's just say Seattle goes up immediately in this game. We cannot go back to doing the same stuff over and over again that we did in this last match against San Diego and just welcoming pressure into teams. Like Seattle will make it. Good teams will see that and say, what the hell are they doing? they're like giving us more ammunition to kick the crap out of them. So I just want to see us incrementally show that we lick our wounds, we nurture them, and we're better. We have scar tissue now. I don't want to see us just continue to open up the same wound over and over again. So, Justin, if anything, I want to keep my eye on Demay. What is Demay going to change or alter in this game, if anything, to make us, more dangerous in winning and earning points?
And you mentioned a wound, Jake. The one goal that I have 2 goals for this game, but one of them that kind of brought to my mind on that is we need to see better communication from our back 3 and then our holding 2. I think we're seeing this now time and time again in the first 2 games again already that we're getting exposed and leaving that gap there. I think the second goal, more specifically, the back line wasn't even in the screen. Or sorry, it was a second chance that caused Berkey's 3rd save in the game, was that the back line wasn't even in the screen. If you're not in the same screen as the rest of the play, you need to be up and you need to be pushing and condensing that space, because otherwise that's when we see Edelman and Durkin get beat and then they're running at the back line. So I want to see better communication out of those 5, more importantly. And then also, Jake, just easy one, score and score first. Do not let Energizer Park get the air taken out of them by an early goal from Seattle. You could feel it when we were, you could feel the energy in San Diego, but imagine just the exhale from you. You're like, oh God, I just landed in San Diego. It's 1-0 in the 3rd minute. Can't have that. We're back at home. You already talked about the importance of the home games this entire season. And one of those 2 losses for Orlando, Jake, they were up 2-0 at halftime against Miami. That's why I texted you. I'm like, take Miami, score 2 goals, even money. And you know where I did that, Jake? On DraftKings. DraftKings, thank you very much for sponsoring us. But Jake, right now is by far, March is the coolest month in sports. MLB is in spring trading, and we're going to have opening day later this month with UFL. Yes, you can bet on the UFL as well. MLS just kicked off. NHL's in full stride, and college basketball conference tournaments are kicking off as we're getting into March Madness, just 2 weeks away. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code BWSCL. New customers bet $5, and if your bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets instantly, Jake. That's code BWSCL in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
I'm so glad that guy does that for us now.
Our 3rd co-host, unnamed, he shall not be named. But Justin, we will name our predictions and our best bets for this match. We're getting smoked across all of these right now, but it's a different day. It's a new day. It's a new week. It's a new opponent. And I'm not predicting a loss this week, shockingly. I am predicting a 2-2 draw against Seattle. And my best bet, and I'll lay out these bets, Justin, you'll give us both your prediction and your bet. So odds-wise, City is looking at a plus 200 right now to win this match. Seattle at plus 110, the draw at plus 250. So odds are looking pretty tight, but Seattle's still the favorite coming to St. Louis. And my best bet for this one, knowing our game history with them, knowing how our defense looked, but knowing how much our attack needs a rebound this, I am parlaying both teams to score. BTTS you might see on the sports book, and over 2.5 total goals in the match for a joint odds on this parlay of minus 115. So close to even money there. And again, agnostic of result, I'm seeing goals and I'm seeing both teams get on the board.
Jake, I like that. I'm predicting a 2-1 dub. I'm going to be optimistic here. I kind of like, you rarely see that these teams are even an underdog when coming at home. Even if it's a team that is just, unless you get to the end of the season, it's bottom of the barrel versus top tier. But like for 2 teams this early in the season, I'm kind of surprised that we're an underdog. And that's immediately, where I look when I go for that is 1, City double chance. That means if we tie or win, that part of the bet hits. And then I'm just going to add in to get it a little bit closer to even money. Just the game total over 1.5 goals. So if there is a 1-1 draw, my bet hits minus 125. If there is a 2-2 draw, or if City wins 2-1, my bet hits. So it goes along with my prediction. I think we're going to win this game 2-1, and I'm going City double chance, so either draw or win, and there to be 2 goals in the game at minus 125.
That's an informed strategy there, right? I mean, because I don't think this game's gonna be 0-0. And we just talked about the importance, especially this year, of the home advantage, right? For teams. I take Orlando out of it. There's been 2 losses in 27 games if you take the 2 from Orlando gone. So it, on paper, that's a wise, informed bet, and you're hearing some good advice here. We're hoping to be in the green on this one. I would take anything, Justin, to get at least a point in this one. I know, again, you're back home, but you've had 2 tough home games to start the season, and Seattle never going to be an easy test given what we just talked about. But if you're City, I think you have to respond here. And I'm not even saying you have to win. You have to respond and show that we can show market improvement game over game, and just an ability to learn from our mistakes and be difficult to play against good teams, but most importantly, be difficult to play against at home. Any final thoughts there, Justin?
That's it, Jake. I would say for these guys, yeah, it'd be nice to get a point. It would be huge to get 3. You don't want to have 2 points in the first 3 matches of the season. That is already, we've talked about it, that is starting to put yourself in a hole that is hard to climb out of. So why don't we just take this one at home against the Seattle team? Yeah, it might be a little wet out there, but I think the weather is going to be relatively warm. So get out there, go to Energizer Park. And if you have some time before or after, or if you don't have a ticket, get to the pitch. That is the best place to watch games, kind of pregame, postgame, everything. I'll be there again this Saturday.
Love it. Well, in the meantime, everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Stay dry out there, St. Louis, and we'll talk to you all again next week for the recap and preview, and the wheels keep on turning. In the meantime, all for City.